going to share my number 3 in a minute, but before I do that, I want to ask one more question around this.
Yes.
Do you think this is getting worse, better, or the same? So you think about lack of self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
If it was 2018, would you be saying the same thing, or 2017? Or is this something that is a little more stark for you in 2019?
I think it's getting worse, considerably worse.
Why?
I think, and you and I have talked about my sort of take on candor. The lack of candor is really pervasive in business. And I think that's only getting worse because people are not necessarily having these honest conversations about who we are, how we're showing up, how I'm coming across, getting the necessary feedback. I think that's only getting worse, which means that the lack of self-awareness, in my view, is getting worse. So I think every year I've seen maybe a slight decline in people's self-awareness. The good news is when they can sit down in a confidential, helpful way and kind of talk about how they're coming across and point things out, I think that people can rebound. I think they can course correct. But I do think it's getting worse, in my opinion.
So the antidotes really get candid feedback from a trusted source.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's your number 3?
My number 3. My number 3, and this is one of the things I've seen from my kind of leaders, particularly important for folks that are kind of director level and above, not intentionally working to align with other leaders.
I like that.
So they're like, I just want to play in my sandbox. I really don't want to learn about your sandbox, and I definitely don't want to share my toys.
So working in silos, lack of collaboration.
Yeah. So specifically, what it would look like is two specific behaviors I don't see that I wish I did see. They are not having lunches with peers. No lunches. Like, why would I go to lunch with her? Like, I don't want to do that. So they're isolating themselves a little bit more. And they're not, this is where it's actually getting, that one doesn't necessarily get leaders in trouble directly. The second one does. Not supporting leaders publicly. If anything, doing the opposite.
Okay.
Like, well, if marketing would just get their act together, saying that kind of stuff to their team. So they're not working to kind of align and collaborate and partner.
So let me ask you this. So when you encounter people that struggle with this, it's a form of self-awareness, right? That they don't understand that they're not doing it, or they don't understand that it's important. When you talk to them about it, confront them about it, how do they respond?
You know, it's funny, actually. They all say, I know it's important.
Okay.
Well, let me back up a little bit. They all say, I know it's a good thing to do. I don't have time for it. And I don't see why that would be more important than, say, spending time with my team. So they recognize on the surface that it's important, but in the prioritization of things in their life, they always drop at rock bottom. And then what happens is, because of that, then politics form, silos form. And so, you and I could probably have a whole other show, but, when I'm working with a senior team, just like when you work with a senior team, when I'm kind of evaluating the team dynamics, often the teams that I experience are, most of them are what I call level 1 in terms of functioning. Level 1 functioning is characterized by respect, but no alignment.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, I respect you, you respect me. Now don't ask me about anything that I do.
Okay.
And I won't ask you anything about what you do. So there's no accountability, there's no candor, there's none of that.
So when you point this out to them, are you giving them sort of a goal? The purpose of doing this better is to get over here. Are you giving them something to move towards with this? Yeah. And do they understand the value of that?
Yeah. So usually it's them identifying those 3 to 5 key stakeholders or other leaders that they need to align with. So if it's marketing, they better be really aligned with operations, and because those two are very connected and they impact each other. So it's identifying those other partners that it's important for them to, other departments and functions that those partners represent, that's important to align with, so they can be more efficient and effective. Because when they don't do that, inevitably, somebody works on something that doesn't let anyone else know, and then it causes a month or 2 of problem solving or firefighting. So it actually helps them become more efficient. So I could try and help them see the business reason for doing it. And then the tactical thing is, just like you preach, get lunches on your calendar. I actually schedule it. And
do you find that they, is there any nervousness or or frustration with, okay, I get the need to do it, but I don't know how to do it. Do you get a lot of questions about the tactics?
Yeah, so I actually will then write out, here are the 3 questions you need to ask your peer.
Good, good.
And so they come with their questions, and then they usually say the same thing to me. They say, it was really awkward sitting down with this person because I don't really know them. And then after we started talking, I got to know them, and then I learned about this thing they were working on, and I had no idea. And actually, that thing directly impacts us. And had I not known about that, we were going to have a major problem in about 2 months.
Isn't it funny how the power of curiosity sort of unlocks this whole thing? If you just go in with questions, don't try to show up and be perfect. Don't try to show up and have all the answers. Actually start with questions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just that a good mentor of mine taught me years ago, and I still hold on to it today. We all hold a piece of the truth. So trying to get them to see, hey, they've got a piece of the truth. They've got a puzzle piece you need. So have lunch with them. You might learn something. So that's my number 3.
I like it.
More leaders did that, things would be a little smoother. Okay, Randy, you're number 2.
So my number 2 may not surprise you. I'm curious to see your take on this, but an addiction to busyness. I don't have a single client, and haven't in many years, that would not complain about, I get too many emails, I have too many meetings, I just have no time during the day to do the things that really matter. So it's this addiction to busyness that is a constant struggle. Even carving out time to have our coaching sessions, sometimes can overwhelm them. So I definitely feel like that's a real issue, and it has been for many years. This year in particular, I think there's just the pace of business, and the clients I work with it seems exponentially higher this year for some reason. So helping them sit down and think about priorities is really, really important. Actually taking a look at how do you handle your workload? Can I actually look at your schedule for a couple of weeks and understand where you spend your time? Do you really need to be in all of those meetings? What is the purpose of you being in those meetings? Who's calling those meetings? We could have a whole show on dysfunctional business meetings. We should sometime. But so helping them understand the inefficient use of time. And there are so many important things they need to do. They need to invest time in their teammates. They need to work on strategy. Heck, they need to do their day job, but they're in meetings and answering emails and everything else. And the other thing that's a real challenge is so many of them struggle to turn it off. The workday is not 8 to 5 for them. Sometimes it's 7 to 7 or longer. So I think that addiction of busyness is a real challenge.
So I want to hone in on, you used the word, and used a couple of times, word addiction, meaning they like it, or it's giving them some kind of a payoff. So why?
It's like a bad drug.
Why? What's the payoff? Why is this? Because we often think about calendars, and too many people complain. They'll say, "Oh, this person scheduled it on me," or they, other people are overriding my calendar, and it's like it's happening to them. But the word addiction's more like, no, I'm actually seeking that out. I like it.
Well, I know that chocolate chip cookies are bad for me, but I've never walked past one and not had one. I mean, I can't walk past a plate of cookies and not have one. So I have an addiction to chocolate chip cookies. I know it's bad for me, but I'm not going to give it up. I'm just telling you right now. So I think that work busyness is a lot like that. So I think that people that kind of get into the flow of their work and they get more responsibility and they feel the only way to get ahead is to kind of go with the flow around them. That's part of the problem. It's not just an individual issue, it's a cultural issue. Companies that have leaders that have email issues or meeting issues, they're not by themselves on an island. It's part of the culture. That's how we do things around here, right? I think that the addiction is fed by their surroundings, and also they don't want to stand out as the guy not playing along. They don't necessarily want to be brave and make courageous choices around their calendars and say no to meetings. So it just feeds this, yes, I use the word addiction. So helping someone uncouple from that, maybe in the bubble of our coaching sessions, and say, look, calm down, take a breath. Let's just talk about your day, and helping them understand what priorities look like. You mentioned investing time and alignment. I always preach the rule of 15, because people always say to me when I talk about relationships, I don't have time for that every single time. So I teach the rule of 15. You have 5 lunches, 5 breakfasts, 5 lunches, and 5 dinners a week. So you have 15 meals. You can pick 3 or 4 of those a week to insert someone where you can spend time with them. But that helps really busy people kind of get it into their heads. But I'm telling you, I think that this is a major issue. And if we have the show in 10 years, it's probably going to be on my list.
Yeah, really interesting. You were talking and immediately made me think of, I had a leader I talked to last year, and she said, she's kind of moved past this, but she said there was a point in my career where I had a sense of pride when I responded to a leader on a weekend, or late at night.
Yes.
Like, look, I'm still working.
Well,
it was just kind of this badge of honor, like, I'm always on.
Well, something that feeds the addiction is, to your point, we are always on. It's a badge of honor. And sometimes as leaders, we don't understand that by sending the email that we really don't care if you respond or not, we are sending an email that I'm on, and the person receiving it probably assumes I need to be on too. So even though you have this very innocent 10 o'clock at night email thing, you just want to empty out your inbox, you're sending a signal, I'm working, and they have to interpret it as they will. So we have to be thinking about the signals we send with our business.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful.